Hey, so I really enjoyed all the talks today and the panels, and I think it really speaks to how exciting of a time it is to be in AI right now. And I wanted to take my 10 minutes to talk about how Merantix is taking some of the new and unique capabilities of AI and applying them to some problems that people and businesses are facing that I think are just on the cusp of being able to be solved right now. And I want to talk about basically, first of all, what Merantix's approach is, and a couple projects in specifics of what we do. So, first off, our approach. Our approach. So, what we do is basically we're a company builder here in Berlin. And what that means is we're an incubator, basically that works on its own projects. We have a group of talent in-house that has research expertise, that has engineering expertise, basically, in building large-scale systems, making sure they're reliable, making sure they work, and product and entrepreneurship experience. And this kind of manifests itself in a track record of building and exiting companies. Our two founders are a deep learning PhD from ETH Zurich and a Swiss serial entrepreneur who's built some companies in the past. And we take this kind of background and we go and find partners with data sets, with domain-specific knowledge to help us help them get value out of those data sets, and finally with some market knowledge and access, which makes them a good testing ground for our products to start out with. And to jump into projects, I'm going to talk about 4 right now. So I think these 4 are the most exciting for me to talk about and share. And the first one is about medical imaging. And so for medical imaging, what we do is basically automated mammography screening, and this means taking breast images, X-rays of the breast, and trying to detect the incidence and the likelihood of cancer. And so many people know that basically medical imaging is one of the hot fields for deep learning right now. And actually recently at the NVIDIA GPU and deep learning conference back in May, I think something around 80% of all the participants voted that in the next 5 years, the most promising area where deep learning would be commercialized would be this field, medical imaging. And what we do in this field is basically we try to pick a problem that is just hard enough that solving it really delivers value to doctors. So it saves them time and it really improves patient outcomes, saves people's lives. And on the other hand, it's not too hard that it's something that we don't have enough data to really solve, to really train a model to perform accurately enough. And on the one hand, basically you got things like chest X-rays, which are super high volume. Doctors use them all the time to figure out if you got fluid in your lungs or pneumonia and stuff like that. But it's rather easy for doctors to go and to take a few seconds and just look at an X-ray and figure out what's going on. On the flip side, you got things like brain scans, heart scans. These are really tough because they're really low volume. They're often used in really, really challenging scenarios and for rare diseases, rare situations. And it's hard to gather the amount of data to train a model to really deliver some value that is going to outperform a doctor there. And so in the sweet spot in the middle, we have stuff like mammographies, which every woman over a certain age gets a free screening for. And it's always for the same disease, and it's always very standardized. And so it's a perfect problem for us to go and tackle, because it's something that we can gather a lot of standardized data on and train a model and basically detect 2 things right now here. On the left-hand side, or on the right-hand side, but on the left, you got masses, and on the right, you got things called microcalcifications. And these are just basically technical details for things that help predict breast cancer. So we train a deep learning model. We work with these partners down, listed on the bottom. We collect their data, kind of like work together to structure the right kind of partnership, and train a model to basically predict the likelihood of breast cancer for certain kinds of stages. And that's our medical use case. Second, we got basically ads. So this is someone holding a Facebook app with an ad showing on their phone. And what I think is interesting here is that you have basically when you're placing ads on Facebook, when you're a business and you just released a new sneaker, you're Nike, and you want to basically put an ad up on Facebook, up on Google, whatever it might be, you have a team of designers go and craft some image, take some photos, and then they try to pick an ad that's going to perform well, that's going to resonate with the people that the ad is shown to. But the problem with this is that it's rather intuition-based, and it's rather sort of like some guy has worked in, some person has worked in this field for 20 years, and they have the kind of experience that makes them think that this kind of ad is going to work well. But what actually happens is that 50% of all ads placed on Facebook are negative ROI, which means that basically people are spending more money on the ad, on placing the ad, than they get from purchases from the people seeing the ad. And that's just a huge waste of money. And the cool thing about deep learning is that it's really good in images. And so we basically take this problem where you can go and look at a big data set of hundreds of thousands of ads, try to predict the performance of those ads. And what we do is, in this example, we predict the click-through rate of the ad, and we are able to tell 3 important things. One is whether or not that ad is even worth putting on Facebook, whether it's a really bad ad that's not going to perform. 2 is whether or not it's a really, really good ad. And 3, I think, which is the most exciting, is basically being able to tell the advertiser why their ad is performing well. And so here you can kind of see we pick an ad, pick an image, and are able to identify which parts of the image are going to probably perform well with the user. Like what causes the user to really like this ad? What causes them to click on this ad? And we are able to train this data by gathering all of the ads in our data set and basically find the patterns that contribute to performance in the creative. Third, we have a kind of a finance use case. What's cool about finance is that this is not really an image-based deep learning model. We're taking really messed up features, addresses, payment history, phone type, stuff like that. And we work with our partners, Interim, Sunrise, basically take their customer data and try to predict the likelihood of a default for the, potential clients, potential customers. And Interim's the biggest credit scoring agency in Europe. And what we're able to do is actually build a deep learning model, a fully collected network that outperforms their existing models. And when you have basically a finance use case like this, and you're able to outperform their existing models, what you can do is basically take that increased performance and translate it directly to value for that business, because it's so easy to measure in finance, and also a better product for the customers. Finally, I think what's kind of one of the most exciting of our projects is in self-driving cars. And it's Germany, so everyone thinks about cars, and we're at an ML conference, so everyone thinks about self-driving cars. And what we do is basically, the challenge with self-driving cars is that they're going to be huge, everyone knows that. But people don't really know how these self-driving cars work. You have a deep learning model that often powers all these self-driving engines, but deep learning models are well known to not really be understandable. I think there was this study back in the day by the US Army where they were trying to predict whether or not there's a tank in a video image. And they basically took their training data, their test data, and did all this analysis, built a really good model that performed well. And then they deployed this in the field, and then they found that it was utter crap. And the reason, turns out, that all the training images of tanks were taken during cloudy weather, and all the training images of no tanks were taken in sunny weather. So they built a weather prediction model, not a tank prediction model. And this is something that the auto companies really don't want. They don't want you to basically drive a car in the sun and then crash it in the rain, because that would suck. And so what we do is basically build an auditing tool for these car companies. And the idea is we take their trained models, we work with the research teams, and then we build some kind of visualization tool. Basically, on the right-hand side, you see a really early prototype of a visualizer that shows for this deep learning model that's trained to recognize objects. First, you see a truck, then you see a cat and another truck, and you see that actually on the third column there, the dark spots represent what parts of the image that the deep learning model is really triggered by. And so for the truck, it's being triggered by the whole thing, which is good. For the cat, it's actually being triggered by the ears, which is kind of interesting. And then for the truck on the bottom, again, it's working as we expect. And as you can kind of imagine, I think a car company can use this to figure out if their models are being trained correctly or not. And on the left-hand side, we do something that's slightly more advanced, where we segment the image, and then we basically color different parts of the image differently and perturb the image in ways that humans would not be confused by, but that a deep neural net might be confused by. And so we first color the road a different color. yellow, red, green, purple, orange. And actually, you see that for yellow and orange, it's not doing so well. It's turning red. Red means that it's not really predicting that that's a road. And then on the third column, we actually changed the brightness of an image. And it turns out that the model is pretty good there. So I think these are some of the most exciting projects that we're working on. We basically take this approach of taking talent, finding partners, taking the data sets, and figuring out what's a really valuable use case for these guys. If you're interested in these projects, I want to talk more. It's a really exciting time for us right now because we're expanding really fast, and it's just everything's moving super at a really cool speed. Thanks.